Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global show around COVID-19. We use this daily conversation to talk about three different crises affecting America: the health, financial, and racial inequality crises. Today, we're going to talk about US voting issues. We're going to be joined by three awesome guests: Reverend Kevin Van Hook, Minister, Justice, Advocacy, and Change for the Riverside Church; Marcia Johnson Blanco, Co-Director, Voting Rights Project, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights; and Steve Milliken, Founder and CEO of Justice Aid. Please share this on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We're live right now on all those platforms, and you'll meet our guests in just a minute. Hello, everyone. It's episode 91 of our show. That means we've been in lockdown in New York for 91 straight days. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and co-founder of Digimentors, a company that does social, digital, and virtual events consulting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. 91 days is something that I never thought is where we would be when we started this. We thought we'd be doing a couple of weeks, but we've gone 91 straight days because of our awesome producers like Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon, as well as Rose Horowitz, Rose Horowitz 31. They'll be live tweeting during this session, so please look for their tweets. It's also possible because of all of you and people who've been watching. Thousands of you watch every episode and send us great feedback. You use words like a lifeline for you during the pandemic. You've said this has been uplifting, but I can tell you this is uplifting for me. And I'm so grateful to everyone. We're looking for your ideas for future episodes. Please message us at the email address you see on the screen, sree@sree.net. And you can see our entire archive of 91 days of programs on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sreenet, SREENET. We want to, of course, thank our sponsors. And let's start with Art & Co. Get involved with the world's largest online art auction, fundraising for COVID-19 victims. We have 6 awesome charities and 31 independent artists who will benefit. artandco.net, artandco.net. Even if you're not a art collector, you know somebody who is, please check out artandco.net. And our other sponsor is Muckrack Academy. And I'm so grateful to them that they're able to help me put together a free Fundamentals of Social Media course. It's a free certification course that anybody in the world can take, no matter what business you're in, no matter your age, and no matter your background. And it starts next week, and you can sign up today. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Use your phone right now to take a picture or grab a screenshot and share this with your family and friends. mrac.co/social. More than 3,500 people around the world have already signed up. So we hope you will as well. Before we bring in our guests, we just want to remind all of you that we're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Tell us where you're watching from. We love to share that with our audience. Tell us how you're feeling, and tell us also about this issue of voting rights in the United States, voter suppression, and other things that we're going to be talking about. How do you feel? What is your sense of what's going to happen with the elections? This is the time to speak up and post your questions or your comments for our expert panel. And now we're ready to bring them on. I give them a little heads up that they're coming on one at a time now. And here we go. We're going to bring on very first person on the air with us is Reverend Kevin Van Hook. Hello, sir.
Sree.
Thank you for being here. We're so delighted and honored that you be with us. You're with Riverside Church, one of the magical places in New York that does so much great work, spiritual healing, but also a place of great convening, right? People come in and learn so much there as well. You are focused not just on religion, but also other ways to bring people together. So I start with asking all my guests, how are you and how is this moment treating you?
Yes, so thank you for asking. We're doing well, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of hurt in our city and a lot of hurt within our congregation. And so we're really just trying to figure out how do we be the church in this particular time, and really speaking to the very felt needs that individuals have within our community. So many of our ministries are still active, whether it's our food pantry, where folks can come in a few days a week and receive food, and our justice ministries are definitely still active, especially being on the front lines of various things, because as you know, we're not just fighting COVID-19 pandemic, but we're also fighting racial injustices, as well as looking at voter suppression in our nation. And so we're excited about the event coming up on Sunday, and partnering with Justice Aid and others. And so the work is still continuing, and it's something that we can't let up even in a time like this.
Thank you, Reverend, and we'll of course talk a lot to you. We can see that the internet connection's a little bit on the soft side right now, but I hope it gets better. But thank you so much for being here. We certainly hear you. Thank you. Let's go to now bring on Marcia. Hello, Marcia.
Hello, Sree. Thanks
How
for
are
having me.
you? Thank you for being here. Let me start with that question. How are you? Where are you?
I always feel that the how are you is such a loaded question these days. It depends day by day, but right now I'm in fighting spirit. The pandemic has really lifted up a lot of the racial inequalities that we have in the country, whether it's voting, healthcare, employment. And the way to address the problem first is to recognize its existence. And now we are going to be working together to fight it. So I'm very much looking forward to being a part of that fight. And at the end of this, us coming out as a very transformed country that is a lot more equal. And I'm also feeling heartened that I work with amazing partners, including Justice Aid and Riverside Baptist, and I am not alone. There are lots of us in this fight.
There really are lots of people on your side, so thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization you work for and its role in all of this?
Yes, so I work for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. It was founded in 1963 by President Kennedy at another transformational moment in our country when we were fighting for civil rights. And President Kennedy asked the private bar to join in the fight, and the response was the creation of the Lawyers Committee. I co-direct the Voting Rights Project. I've been working there since 2004 on voting rights. And this is going to be the 5th presidential election where I will be working on our election protection program, which is the nation's largest nonpartisan voter protection program. And we are very seasoned and very ready for the fight ahead, because we're continually struggling in this country on what it means to ensure that every eligible voter can vote. But the election protection program's primary focus is making sure that voters have the resources they need in order to vote.
And is there any more important topic than that? Thank you so much. Let's now bring in Steve Milliken. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Sree. Thanks for having me on.
How are you? Where are you?
I think somewhere between anguished and resolved. I'm in Washington, D.C., the home of the spectacularly beautiful Black Lives Matter Plaza that our mayor created directly across from the White House by St. John's Church. It's just a spectacularly beautiful place. And I think the anguish is the pain we all feel at the loss, the killing of George Floyd, and so many other things that are occurring, and the suffering that so many have in the pandemic. But the resolve and the uplift comes from just the prospect of taking all of this energy to convert it to voting power, to get people in positions of authority who will make the changes that we have a historic opportunity to implement.
Tell me about Justice Aid, please.
Justice Aid is a tiny organization. I am so humbled and honored to be present with Reverend Van Hook and Riverside Church, and Marcia of the Lawyers Committee, and the Election Protection 866, our vote campaign. What we exist to do is to identify and curate, if you will, key civil rights issues, and find people that are doing the most extraordinary work around those issues. And then we try and get money from people to give directly to the experts in the field. This year, we are really pleased to be raising money to support Election Protection 866, our vote.
And how can people learn more, and what should they know about?
I think that if you go to justiceaid.org, a very simple website, you can see the kind of work we have been doing, which has been focused on supporting beneficiaries in the space of really racism, poverty, and justice, and identifying organizations that are fighting the criminalization of virtually everything in this country. It seems in this country, if there's a problem with mental health, we want to criminalize people with mental health challenges. We even criminalize the innocent, as DNA testing has revealed in recent years. We criminalize poverty. We criminalize folks trying to come to America for a better way of life. And it's a sickness. It's a sickness that's born of legacies of white supremacy, and it's the latter-day Jim Crow that Michelle Alexander has written about and resulted in such horrendous mass incarceration. So this year we turn to the vote, because every civil right that we're working on depends on the effective exercise of the civil right to vote.
We hear you. So let's bring on Reverend Van Hook. Reverend, thank you for being here with all of us. Tell us about this moment and where you are personally seeing everything that's happening right now.
Yes. So really two-pronged with that. I would say really one with us protecting the vote, but then also with us just noticing these three back-to-back police-involved killings, and I would even go as far as calling them murders of individuals. We've seen Ahmaud Arbery, which was in January, but the video footage was released a few weeks ago, and then Breonna Taylor, and now George Floyd. And so I think Steve had the perfect word for this, but it's really just this anguish. But I was speaking in Times Square on Sunday, and I quoted this, really, I would call her a beloved saint in our tradition, but it's Fannie Lou Hamer. And Fannie Lou Hamer in 1964, before the Democratic National Convention, she basically just stood up and said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And I feel that that's the sentiment of so many people throughout this country, as well as so many people at the Riverside Church, where we've seen this kind of rerun play over and over again. And so folks are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. But with that, we also have this, we live with a great hope. And another person, I would call her an ancestor that we think about is even Ella Baker. And Ella Baker says that we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. And so I think that's where we are. And I love being at the protests in New York City, because we have so many young folks who have really kind of adopted that mentality. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. And so there's so many different fronts, and I pray that we keep the momentum going through what we're doing on Sunday, all the way through November, and even going forward to where we see some really progressive policies in place to really implement change in our nation.
Thank you so much. Let's take a look at the program for Sunday. So let's take a look here. We'll just pull that banner off the screen, and here you're seeing we're going to have this program. Steve, do you want to just talk about it a little bit?
It's a beautiful campaign of the Riverside Church called Lift Every Voice and Vote, which is derived from the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which will be beautifully performed during this forum by the Resistance Revival Chorus. And as you see, we have statements from Stacey Abrams and Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, to whom we're extraordinarily grateful. And then we will identify the issues in great depth through a panel on which the head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, Kristen Clark, will be joined by Maria Teresa Kumar of Voto Latino, and Ray Suarez will moderate that panel, which will provide extraordinary depth and power to folks who can have a greater understanding by this public conversation of exactly what we are confronting in this time when tremendous forces are being levied to steal the election coming.
Well, you are being very direct with us, and we appreciate that. Let me go to Marcia and just ask her how she reacts to that, this idea that the elections, forces are arraying to steal this election. What does that mean to you?
So I go back to the 2000 election because I think that close election really showed how the impact that ineffective election administration could have on the right to vote and the impact on the outcome of an election. And unfortunately, since 2000, states have been implementing laws, jurisdictions have been implementing processes that make it harder for some voters to be able to vote. And election protection was born out of that realization in 2000, starting first in 2001. And we have been at the fight ever since. And as I mentioned before, I've started in 2004 with the presidential election there, and I've just seen the evolution of the impact of suppressive laws and processes on the right to vote. And if allowed to continue, they can indeed determine the outcome of elections. So my job is to make sure that the voters determine the outcome of elections, and in order to do so, they have to have fair access to the process. And what we've been seeing lately is that whether it's voter ID laws, purging of voters from the rolls, moving and consolidating polling places, not counting absentee ballots or making sure that absentee ballots get to voters that they could return them on time, not counting provisional ballots. All of these are build on top of each other to make it harder for eligible voters to be able to vote. And if we allow that to happen, then we are indeed allowing others to put their thumb on the scale of our elections outcome. And so we work through the 866 Our Vote hotline to provide a resource to voters to answer questions they have, or to, as they identify problems, work with election officials to address those. And then when we need to, we litigate. And so, we are really trying to do, as a coalition, all we can to push back against those who would want to steal our elections through voter suppression, and to let them know that we're not going to allow that to happen on our watch.
Thank you. Let's look at this graphic here, 866 Our Vote. What does that mean exactly? We also have an international audience, so you'll have to explain that a little bit to them.
So the 866 Our Vote is a hotline, a voter protection hotline. It's a nationwide hotline that voters can call. So for example, yesterday we had a primary election here in the US that included states such as Georgia, Nevada, South Carolina, and we got over 2,000 calls yesterday from voters asking for polling place information or letting us know about the long lines at their polling place and the reasons for those long lines, including machines not working properly, not having enough poll workers. And so this hotline provides a resource for voters. And then we use the information we get from the hotline to advocate on behalf of those voters. So that included yesterday going to court to get polling hours extended, so the voters who couldn't vote at the beginning of the day because the polling place wasn't ready, had the opportunity to do so at the end of the day. And you show the make a plan image there, and it's really, really important for voters here in the US to make a plan to vote, to make sure that they're registered, they know where to vote, they know what identification they need in order to vote, because of all of these challenges that we're facing now with election administration in this country.
Thank you. Let's do one thing that we love doing on the show. We try to tell people this is not a Zoom call. There's a chance to connect and have a real conversation. So one of the things we do, folks, is we do a global tour. So we're going to just read some of the comments. If you're watching right now, please tag in and tell us where you're watching from, and please share with a friend. You know there are people who care about voting issues but don't understand them, and this is your chance to have them watch it. If not now, they can watch it later. It'll be recorded and live on all the platforms you're on right now. So let's go in and see. Jonathan's watching from Union Square. Hi, Jonathan. He's watched for 91 straight episodes, and he says that means there have been 13 weeks of quarantine right here in New York City. Vivek sends good vibes. Rajni's watching from Toronto, and she says hello. Let's see. My father is watching in Kerala, India. Hello, Dad. We miss you. I'm sorry I'm not in India with you. Stephen Kaplan says, I would not miss this. Listening from Ramsey, New Jersey, thinking of you all. Thank you, Stephen. And Sumati is watching from New York City and the Riverside Church. So, Reverend, you want to give a shout out? You can.
Yes, it's good to see you, Sumati, on here. And she is one of our co-chairs of our Lift Every Voice and Vote ministry, and who's been doing tremendous work with just getting folks to participate in the census, as well as ensuring folks are registering to vote. So thank you for being here again.
Sudipta says hello. Joe Appio is watching from Cumming, Georgia, which is right outside Atlanta. Sree, as you know, I work for the SOS on election education in Georgia. I also trained voters in Brooklyn. I worked the polls last night and have plenty to offer. So thank you, Joe. Please let us know in the comments, what should we know about what happened last night? So many people were disenfranchised last night in Georgia. We want to know more about that. And so please jump in. Carape is watching from Bahrain. That's very nice. We're really, truly global conversation here. And Sweet Freedom, thank you for your service. Pay it forward, says Patricia. Thank you. And Bunker's watching from India. Andrew Rule, give you 3 thumbs up. We love that. And here is Tosi says the transgender community deserves the dignity and respect that most of the other people take for granted. And I think that's right. We should all be paying attention. Anand's watching from India. Stanley's watching from Dubai. We've got some more. There we got four thumbs up. So let's see if we can break the 4 is now the record. Somebody's giving us good advice. Wash your hands, which we all know that we need to do. Let's see. Ashok says namaste. And then Sunny Slaughter, who's a great guest on our show, a great business leader. She says, Marcia, you're with Sree. I love it. And she says, the leading voting expert in the country, and I'm honored to serve with her on the ICERD. What is that?
Thanks, Sunny. So yes, one of the work that I do along with Sunny is ensuring that the U.S. meets its treaty obligations. And one of those treaties we've signed on to is the International Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, and lift up the inequalities that continue in the U.S. that violate that treaty, and work to make sure that the treaty obligations are implemented along with our domestic laws.
Oh, that's such an important aspect of the things that we're not even talking about, right? The American obligations to the international community in so many areas, they're being dropped, including, as you know, on WHO, the Iran deal. All of that has an impact on how America is seen in the world and our role in the world. Sunny says she's at a conference and popped in for a quick view and to say hello to all of you. Katie is watching from Westminster and Maryland, live tweeting for Justice Aid. And Peter says, Peter Cook of the New York State Council of Churches is watching on Facebook. Yeah. This is amazing. So I think that's the Reverend fan club that's here. And lots of other folks are speaking up as well. Thank you, everybody. Please comment, please share right now. And let's go to Steve to ask him a question. Steve, can you tell us specifically why we need to care about these issues? We've hinted at it a little bit, but directly tell me why everybody must vote.
Well, I think that we can wrap the issues that are so prominent today by understanding that inequality in America is synonymous with racism. And when I listened to Marcia speak about voter suppression, I think we really could think of it as racist voter suppression when you look back as recently to the primary in Wisconsin, where in Milwaukee, which is the largest center of predominantly African-American voters, there were traditionally 75, I believe it was, polls that were reduced under the challenge of COVID, but also quite systemically to 5 polling places for the largest center of Black voting in the state of Wisconsin. And that's why all efforts to register people to vote, for people to check their registration to make sure they haven't been purged from the rolls, to understand where their polling place is, where they can vote, how they can vote by mail, how they can use absentee ballots where that's available. This is critical. And I was moved by Jean-Baptiste as he demonstrated in New York when he said there are going to be 3 candidates on the ballot November 3rd, the Democratic and the Republican candidate, and then a candidate named Apathy. And Apathy has over 100 million people voting for apathy by not voting at all. And I was reminded by Maria Teresa Kumar about the situation in Texas, where she works for Voto Latino and will appear on Sunday in our Riverside Church program. You know, there are over 3 million unregistered youth in Texas, and over 2 million of those unregistered youth are Latinx youth. So the threat of COVID restricting the vote, of apathy restricting the vote, and given all that's at stake, just reinforces how vital it is that we get the word out and get everybody not only to prepare themselves to vote and make a plan to vote, but to get every other single friend and family member that they can identify to do the same.
And this is one thing that may be a surprise to a lot of our international audience, that with some of the things we're talking about are counterintuitive to the way people look at elections in other countries. That there's an entire party in the United States that wants people not to vote, that it's in their interest to have fewer people vote. I don't think that's true in any other democracy of this scale, that everybody wants more people to vote, and then they try to get more of those voters voting for them. Here, there's an active campaign that is not even disguised in any way to have fewer people voting. And that, I think, is something that people don't understand. We're just showing the lovely poster. Can we just talk to it, Steve, for a second? And then I want the Reverend to kind of paint a picture of what Riverside is like, so that people can tune in and learn and watch on the YouTube channel of Riverside Church. We also have on the screen here, you can also see, this will be live 3 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, or at 8 p.m. You can watch it. It'll be available twice, so you can see it. And it'll be on the YouTube channel for the Riverside Church. Go ahead, Stephen, just remind us of who are these faces we're seeing right now on the air.
Well, Stacey Abrams, and you know that the governorship of Georgia was stolen from her by voter suppression. And Kristen Clark, the second from left on this beautiful flyer, is the head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law. And she will be on a panel with, as I said, Maria Teresa Kumar, moderated by Ray Suarez, and we will have an introduction to Stacey Abrams' keynote by Representative Hakeem Jeffries, whom you recall was among the managers during the so-called trial when the president was impeached.
And so we're looking at right now, I want everybody to follow the different hashtags you see on the screen, as well as the handles at Riverside NYC, at JusticeAid _, at 866RVOTE, and the hashtag is JusticeAidForum. And now I'm going to go to the Reverend Van Hook. Tell us, please, about why you're hosting this and what it'll feel like. We'd, of course, all prefer to be with you in the space, but why is it worth still doing this online, sir?
Yes. So voter suppression for us, is particularly at Riverside, we see that as a theological issue. For instance, a very basic tenet of our faith is that everyone is made in the image of God, and we know that everyone has a right to participate in our democracy. But whenever someone is systemically targeted to where they are taking away their rights to participate in that democracy, we see that as an offense, to a biblical offense, a spiritual offense, really against God. And so that's why Riverside is definitely involved in this particular work. When we originally partnered with Justice Aid on this, and this is our second year partnering with Justice Aid, we were very active in pushing for bail reform last year. And as you know, on January 1st, that law went into effect. And so we definitely wanted to be a part of this. And it was originally scheduled for May, but then we had the COVID outbreak. And so as we were counseling different things, this was one thing that we knew we couldn't counsel, because whether we're still under a stay-at-home order or not, there will be an election in November. And so we wanted to really educate, mobilize, and organize folks around how do we ensure that all voices are heard in the upcoming election. And so we've been, for the last several weeks, putting all of our worship experiences online. I wish we could be in our beautiful nave, and our goal was originally to pack our nave for this event, but online it'll still be a great experience. The same folks who, in our tech team who typically put together our worship services will be putting together all the video components. And so I'm excited about it. I've had the opportunity to listen to various parts of the experience. And so I think that a lot of folks will get a lot out of this. And not only that, but we'll have real tangible action items. So we always have a call to action with everything that we do, is particularly around social justice. And this will be exactly the same. And I think at a time like this, folks who want to be involved, they want to know what they can do. They want to know what steps they can take, even from home. And so I would say tune in just for those reasons as well.
Thank you. We're showing everybody a little bit about you on there. We see that you oversee the social justice ministry. The website is trcnyc.org. You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, Insta, all of that. Everyone, please go to trcnyc.org. It's also just a beautiful building. Can you talk about kind of a little bit of history of the church?
Yes, the building was actually built in 1930, and our first senior minister was Harry Emerson Fosdick, who was one of the most well-known ministers in the country at that time, and is known for the partnership that he had with Rockefeller in the sense of building a church really for the city and wanting it to be a church that was committed to social justice. And over the 90 years that our doors have been open, we've been just that. And so we're celebrating that 90th anniversary today. But just a unique fact about the church, it's the tallest church in America. And so and before the outbreak, we just opened up.
Sorry, time out. I had no idea. I lived on 113th Street in New York City. I knew it's really tall, but I didn't know that. See, that's amazing. It's such a beautiful building, historical building, and now it's also the tallest church. I know that. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, not a problem. Now I'll add to that. Once things get back to normal, hopefully the tours will start back. But we had just opened up tours to where folks could go all the way up to the top of the church and visit our bell tower. And so hopefully those come back as things start opening back up. But it'll certainly be a process. But yes.
Yeah, and we're just looking at your website right now, and we also have a social justice section. May I ask you, Reverend, that one of the things that we have seen in America is that political life is dominated in part by the religious right, and they wield an outsized influence in America, American politics, American policy, American news coverage. Why is it that they're able to attract that kind of attention, whereas good folks like you, who are as religious but have a different take on the role of government, the role of God in society, are not where they could be with that? Have you thought about that? Have you ever considered that question?
Absolutely. So, and I know Sumati is listening, and so it might have a big smile on her face. She's a part of our Mission and Social Justice Commission at the church, and this is a conversation that we have really quite often. And it's really, I would say, you asked the $1 million question, because it's hard to really figure out why that is. And it's not because of a lack of voices. It's really just this lack of airtime. And I don't know if maybe certain outlets are more inclined to include religious leaders, whereas others maybe aren't, even though we fall within that bucket. But for instance, there are a lot of different voices. some that immediately come to mind, Reverend William Barber and everything he's doing with the Poor People's Campaign right now. I even think about even in Texas, in the sense of folks who are mobilizing, Frederick Douglass Haynes at Friendship West Baptist Church. The list could go on and on. I think about what the Deaconess Project is doing in St. Louis, but for whatever reason, we typically don't have those same platforms. And obviously, I know with certain networks they would never bring us on, but I'm not sure why. I guess those voices aren't being highlighted in other networks. But yeah,
and just so that people understand that often God is and the teachings of Christ are cited as the reasons why things need to be the way they are in America by the religious right. What is your answer to that in terms of what would Jesus do, for example? What is your answer compared to their answer?
Oh my. So one of the things there are a couple of questions that we always ask. And in fact, we had a guest minister a few weeks ago, Sam Wells, who is he pastors in London, but he talked about the Genesis 3 and 4 questions, and basically he talks about God asking, where are you? And so asking, where are you in moments of crisis? Where are you when the world seems to be going in a whirlwind? Where are you? But then also in Genesis 4, God asks, where is your brother? And so I think that we have to think about the two commandments that God gives us. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, but then also love your neighbor as yourself. And so I feel that that's a very basic tenet of our faith, that we have to love our neighbor. And the thing is that I think that oftentimes it's too easy for us to try to define who our neighbor is on our own. But I think that we have to have an expansive view of who our neighbor truly is, because there are no other words before God says neighbor. We can't just love our white neighbor, or we can't just love our straight neighbor, but it's love your neighbor, and everyone, all the children of God fall within that.
Thank you. Let's go through some of the comments, and I know we have some for our guests here, including Marcia. Karen says, thank you. We have people watching. Pamela says, thumbs up from Washington, D.C. Learning more every day thanks to your work. Thank you. Sunny is replying, and my mom is watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. Miss you. Love you. Thank you for being here. We have a question here that I want to direct to Marcia. People, businesses, et cetera, are adopting to COVID. I wonder what you folks think about virtualizing the polling booths through the video call technology, if it can work, and issue ballots electronically, a hybrid between online and in-person voting. So let's go to, as Sunny said, the leading expert on the American voting system, especially on things people are doing that are bad about the system. You understand it better than anyone. Please share with us, Marcia.
Yeah, so that's a very big question. We do need to ensure that there are spate of opportunities to be able to vote, but we're just not ready in this country to have voting electronically or online. We're coming out of a 2016 presidential election that highlighted the vulnerabilities of our system, and that includes the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure. So we are not ready to be able to vote online and feel secure that vote wouldn't be tampered with along the stream to being counted. However, I would say there are opportunities to engage online with things. Many states have online voter registration opportunities. Unfortunately, some of them limited it to having to, be able to have a certain, if you have a driver's license, then you can register to vote online and that sort of thing. But I do agree that we do need to get to a place where we can use technology to expand the right to vote, but we also need to marry that with the security that would be necessary to ensure that the vote is protected and that the vote you cast is indeed the vote that will be counted.
And what is the difficulty in doing all of that? We saw the president saying that even mail-in ballots are bad and problematic. Can you talk about that for just a second? And why is he casting doubts on the mail-in ballot?
So
even though he voted mail-in himself, right, in Florida?
Exactly. Yeah, I completely disagree with that premise. As we have shifted to responding to the COVID pandemic, as we are looking for ways to ensure that people can vote safely. And being able to vote by mail allows that. However, we need to make sure that the system is implemented in such a way that people can receive their ballots on time and get their ballots back to be counted on time. And what we have seen that vote by mail has done as we've started shifting to more vote by mail than in-person voting in the US is that it's increased participation. Steve mentioned that one of the challenges we face here is apathy, being the third party in voting. And that's because we really make it very difficult for people to be able to access the ballot. And providing vote by mail opportunities increases the those who can engage in voting. And maybe that's what the president is afraid of, is that it increases the amount of people who are actually voting. Because as we know, our turnout here in the US, we get a 60% turnout and we cheer, but we need to make sure that all eligible voters are voting. I do support vote by mail, but that said, there are certain populations that it isn't currently easy for them to be able to vote by mail. We have our Native American population, because of our vote by mail rules and the way their communities are set up, they can't access the ballots. We have to ensure that the ballots are in languages for voters who have limited English proficiency. And so the vote by mail piece does really need to be married with safe and secure in-person options as well.
Thank you. We're just seeing on the screen the ways people can find you and contact you. And that's Marcia Johnson Blanco, co-director of the Voting Rights Project at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. I love how specific the name of the organization is. It covers everything you're doing. There's nobody wondering what it is that you do, right? Your business card says it all.
Exactly.
And I love also the 866 Our Vote campaign, because the call to action is in the name. So being very direct in how you're communicating is really special. We have so many comments coming in, so I'm just going to go through some of them here. Sundar is saying hello from India. Nazmul saying hello. We have a question here from Jay. Also, he asked, or she, I'm sorry, I don't know. Will what he was suggesting reduce discrimination once it's electronic, or are we worried about the other aspects of that? Marcia?
Yeah, so Jay is speaking to the fact that we do have the younger demographic who are used to technology and wanting to figure out how we can encourage them to participate using technology. But the way for us to start bringing technology into the discussion is to make sure that we are also having that security conversation, and to make sure that we're building systems that allow us to use the technology securely. And unfortunately, we aren't there yet, but we can build towards that while we're making sure that millennials and young people feel that voting is something that they should be doing. And the more we make it harder for people to vote, the less inclined they are or discouraged they become in participating. So we do need to really engage that community and that demographic to encourage them to participate and vote until we can build, that infrastructure that would allow us to use technology effectively in the vote.
Thank you. We have just a few minutes left with our amazing panel, folks. Please ask questions, make a comment so that we can all learn together as we're doing. Vandana is one of our producers, just shared a comment from the Reverend. It says, we see voter suppression as a theological issue. It's a spiritual offense to take away someone's right to vote, because everyone is created equally in the eyes of God. So that is very special and really makes sense, I think, for people trying to understand this. Steve, let's go to you. Talk about the youth vote, why it matters, and talk a little more about Justice 8, please.
Well, I'd like to take a minute to just bury this myth of voter fraud, because when people talk about expanding vote by mail, the clarion cry goes up, oh, fraud. Voting by mail is done very successfully in places as diverse as Oregon and Utah and Colorado. And I believe it may have been Loyola where they did a study of elections where they examined 1 billion votes cast and found that there were something like 31 proven cases of fraud. So such a minuscule presence of fraud reveals that the cries of fraud are just a tool of voter suppression. The thing I'd like to say about Justice Aid, and thanks for the question, is we really believe in the power of the arts to move hearts and minds. And so we raise money for civil rights organizations by throwing concerts and other arts events. And there's going to be a really extraordinary performance by Abena Kumsum Davis and the Resistance Revival Chorus on Sunday at our forum. And we're going to close with a prodigy, a fellow named Matthew Whitaker, who's at the Juilliard School, who is, perhaps the preeminent keyboard artist coming in America today. He opened for Stevie Wonder at the Apollo Theater at age 10, and he's going to close our proceedings by playing Oscar Peterson's legendary Hymn to Freedom on the keyboard. I would encourage music lovers to come out on Sunday and stay to the very end. And if you haven't heard Matthew Whitaker before, your spirit will be completely uplifted, even beyond what the Resistance Revival Chorus will do to your soul. So that's a big piece I forgot to mention, and I'm sorry, because we really believe that using the arts in this time of great hardship and sadness when we're confronting such tough issues is an essential part of equanimity and maintaining our balance.
Thank you. Let me ask the Reverend, what is the current situation with COVID? How are your constituents doing, your parishioners, your congregants? How are they doing? How have they been affected? And how do you think that's going to play a role in the elections without being able to gather everyone in the church? What is the effect of these online training and teaching and sermonizing that you're doing?
Yes, no, thank you for asking about our congregation. So as you can imagine, so many people are definitely hurting. There have been so many members who have lost loved ones and folks who are very close to them. And so we're definitely, even as a clergy staff, as ministers, figuring out how do we continue to support members of our congregation during this time. And the really neat thing about this time, even though we're doing things online, is that in my opinion, I think that we've been able to extend our reach a little bit. And so on a typical Sunday, there are folks from all around the globe, literally, who are typically joining into our worship services. And it's funny because we typically have a virtual coffee hour as well. And folks will come into the virtual coffee hour and folks are meeting each other who they've never seen each other at the church. And so we're still able to build community in various in new ways, I should say. Now, in the sense of COVID still being around, even in November, we do have an older congregation, and so it will be difficult putting a lot of folks at risk. And so we're certainly prayerful that folks will be able to vote by mail and use other alternative to ensure that their voices are heard. And so that's why this fight is even that much more important to ensuring that everyone's able to participate in the election.
Thank you very much. We have just a couple of minutes left. I want to go to our voting expert, Marcia, to just get her thoughts on where we are and what are the things that we can focus on. What is your message to the world and to American voters?
So in our democracy, the ability to vote is where you make your voice heard. And we have that opportunity now with our primary elections, and then we'll have the big opportunity in November. And everyone needs to participate and vote. And I should say there's always a lot of focus on the presidential race, but we vote for a range of offices in this country, including prosecutors, judges, the sheriff. And so as we look at what's happening today, as we address police brutality and police violence against people of color, there are opportunities to have a voice in that, in selecting who's going to be the prosecutor, who's going to be the sheriff in your community, as well as who's on your city council and making decisions about what healthcare looks like in your community. So it's every election is an opportunity for us to have our voices heard, and we need to participate. Some incredible wins recently, with now there being a woman, a Black African-American woman who is just voted mayor of Ferguson, another site of great, police violence. So we just need to make our voices heard, and this is our opportunity, and we can't let it go by. It's too important.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Steve Milliken to give us his thoughts as we wrap up.
I read something that Kamala Harris posted that I thought was of great interest. And it said that there are 1.7 million students who have police in their schools but no counselor. 3 million students who have police in their schools but no nurse. 6 million students who have police in their schools but no psychologist. 10 million students who have police in their schools but no social worker. When people talk about funding priorities and the morality of budgets that affect the next generation and schools, none of those changes will happen unless people are elected who care about community, who care about children, who care about coming together. And that's the reason that we are stressing so powerfully this fundamental quality of the right to vote in this very time.
Thank you. And we'll let you give us a shout out for the show on Sunday.
Oh, tune in and beautiful music, extraordinarily uplifting messages. The real leaders on the forefront of this issue will raise your spirits and give hope that we can transform all the energy that's in the streets today into positive changes for America. That's at 3 p.m. and at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's free, of course. It'll be a YouTube premiere event on Riverside Church's platform. And I just hope everyone will come, because you will be educated, you will be entertained, you will be moved, and you will take this message all around the world.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to Reverend Van Hook.
Yes, no, we definitely look forward to everyone joining us on Sunday. I think Steve said it all, but at 3 p.m. or 8 p.m. as well. But the real takeaway is definitely having those tangible action items, things that folks can do right now, because there's so many folks, even in our community at Riverside, who want to be involved and want to ensure that their voices are heard, and doing everything they can to make sure that all voices are heard as well. So.
And that's certainly one thing that we all need to be thinking about. We want to thank the Reverend Van Hook for being here, and Marcia and Stephen, thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned as much as I did. We want to make sure that you also can watch this again. Please tag a friend right now. That's what you can do. Of course, you can vote during the elections, but right now tag a friend so they can watch the recording of this. And to my guests, I will tell you, I will let you go in just a minute, and then I will reintroduce you, because we have people who joined towards the end and are not sure exactly who everyone is. So I always do that when we do our shows. And then the recording starts right now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, so people can watch this. And this is show number 91 of our series. Every single day, 91 straight days we've been doing this show. Tomorrow we're going to talk to some doctors and don't forget that COVID-19 is still happening. So tomorrow at 9 p.m. we have our Thursday night show. And then on Friday at 9 p.m. we're going to talk about the special problems that Black journalists are going through at the moment. It's hard enough being a Black journalist in the best of times, but right now the press is being targeted, and we'll be meeting some terrific experts to talk about that issue at 9 p.m. Friday. Thank you all for being here. I want to give each of you a chance to just give us one more thought before we go. I know that you want us to vote, but what else can we do? I'll start with Marcia and Stephen, and then we go to the Reverend. So we'll just go right now to Marcia and say goodbye to her after that. Go ahead, Marcia.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I also want to lift up our partnership with the faith community. One of the partners with election protection is Lawyers and Callers, where we work together with the faith community to fight voter suppression. And I'm really proud to have them as part of the partnership we have with election protection as well.
Yes, and that makes a big, big difference in what we're trying to do. I'm just going to give everyone your contact information again, right there on the screen. You can just take a screenshot or rewind this after when we're not live, 866-OUR-VOTE, and also look at lawyerscommittee.org to learn more. Marcia Johnson Blanco, co-director of the Voting Rights Project, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Do you guys use a short form for that? What do you say? LC? What do you do?
Lawyers Committee is
okay. Very good. Thank you very much, ma'am. We really appreciate you, and we're going to say goodbye. Thank you. All right, let's go to Steve Milliken. Steve.
I would be remiss if I didn't just say give money to the Lawyers Committee for their campaign, Election Protection 866-OUR-VOTE. Justice Aid has a sort of Robin Hood function. We want to take from people who are able to support civil rights and put those dollars in the hands of people who are the experts who really know how to make just things happen. And if we give every dime that's being raised this spring at Justice Aid to Election Protection 866-OUR-VOTE. So if you can't remember their long name, go to justiceaid.org, and any money that you contribute right now goes to election protection.
Thank you. And I can see Marcia just smiling, and that's great.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve Milliken. We're giving your contact information also, justiceaid.org, justiceaid_. Please take a look on Twitter. Insta has no underscore, and check out justiceaid.org. Thanks very much, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. And now let's go to the Reverend right here. We're going to say hi to Reverend Van Hook.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'll leave us on a very simple note. After listening to this, I think folks know that voter suppression is real, and there are real strategies out there to suppress the vote. And so with that being said, I would say I would encourage everyone to go ahead, participate in the census immediately, but then also yourself, and try to reach out to at least 10 folks and develop a voting plan. So we already know when election day is. And so have a plan. Are you going to take off from work that day, or are you going to go during a lunch break? We know that polling stations might be closing, things like that. And so at least start thinking about that right now is what I would encourage folks to do.
Thank you. My 50th birthday is 3 days before the elections. My wife decided before the pandemic that we can't afford to have a gathering 3 days before the election focused on me. So we're doing it 2 weeks earlier because we want everybody on election day to be in Pennsylvania or wherever else canvassing, that weekend before the election. So that's our little thing that we're trying to do. Thank you, Reverend. We're so grateful to you for your leadership on this and for bringing us all together. We wish you the very best, and we'll see you on Sunday at the Justice Aid Forum, #Justice Aid Forum. Thank you very much, Reverend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Yes.
What a great show, folks. I'm so grateful to our 3 guests. Let me reintroduce them to you so you can share the screenshot right now so that people can learn from us and learn from them. They were just so terrific in what they shared. Reverend Kevin Van Hook and Marcia Johnson Blanco and Stephen Milliken. Please share this with your friends and family around the world. We want to very quickly thank our sponsors for making this possible. We are sponsored by Art & Co. Get involved with the world's largest online art auction fundraising for COVID-19 victims, artandco.net, artandco.net. And don't forget to sign up for my free Fundamentals of Social Media course, open to everybody, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. We go live next week, and you can get a certificate out of this for anybody. I've learned so much putting that together. 3,500 people around the world have joined us, and you can too. Thank you very much, everybody. We're looking for ideas. We're looking for speakers. We're looking for guests. We're looking for sponsors. We'd love to partner with you. Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck, and please stay safe, and please take care of yourself. And as we've been hearing all day, please, please vote, everybody. We need you to vote. Very, very important. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.